Okay, so I'm going to show you how to make a basic column or something here. You could do a tree or whatever, but I like demoing a column. So the first thing I'm going to do to make my column is I'm going to tear off the shapes area. I'm going to go and I'm going to start with a rectangle tool. I'm going to go make my rectangle here. I like starting with just flat shapes, so I'm just going to pick a gray color here so I can see what's going on. If you find it too hard to build things over top of your landscape as your landscape paths and shapes are building up, you can build your stuff off to the side, and I recommend building the stuff off to the side and then bringing it over after you're done. I'm going to add a point here. I'm going to add a point here. I'm going to go to the white arrow tool, grab that anchor point, bring that down there. I'm going to round that off now by going to my convert anchor point tool. If I hold shift down, I'm holding the shift down, it will then take those handlebars and move them along the horizontal axis perfectly. If I click off, you can see that that's nice and rounded. And I'm going to make an oval to go at the top here. So I'm going to pick my oval shape here, that in right there. Maybe fill it in with a darker thing for now, just so I can kind of see what's going on. Select both of these. I'm going to go copy and paste. Oops. Copy and paste that there. Select both of those things, right click and group them together, and then drag that over here. So there's a number of things that I could do with this column. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually put on some gradients to create some 3D effect. Let me right click and ungroup, and then select this long area here. So let's just go this default gradient right here, and then I can go over here and I can start making some adjustments to this gradient. If I want this color here to fit the landscape a bit more, I can double click, maybe pick a shade of green or brown to go with the background here. You see that the light source is coming from this direction, so I'm going to have to reverse the light and the dark. So I can just go up here, and then why don't I put a little more yellow tint in this one. So I go here, I can tint that with yellow. It's a little too much, a little too big. So I can go over here and adjust that, make it a little less with these sliders here. And then if I click on this one, I'm going to attach a gradient to that, the basic gradient on there. Reverse these two things as I need. You probably need some shadow in here. So I tell people you gotta have to sort of make the shadow up. So if I go to my pen tool, I'm gonna click off. So my rules of perspective and whatnot, the shadow's gonna come off of this column, but it's going to go bigger as it comes out to the foreground, so that's what I've done here. And now I have my shadow roughed in here, so I'm going to actually select these, move these to the top here, and now the shadow is underneath of it, making sure there's a little Gaussian blur on the shadows. So I can go effect, blur, Gaussian blur. And I think the shadow always looks good when there's a little transparency adjustment. So I'm going to go up here, window, transparency, start adjusting the opacity, or I could try adjusting some of the blending modes if I need to. Whatever it is that makes your thing look good, just play around. So again, these are early stages. You've developed your column, you're throwing in your shadow, you're figuring out your light source. To go into my layers here and move the stream on top of the shadow here, so I could do that down here. Tuck this shadow under the stream a little more, so I could go to this tool. When you export the artboards, this is all going to be trimmed off, but if you don't like this hanging out, you could just go to the white arrow. If you wanted to go a little more complicated with your column, you can actually attach texture to it. I can hold the rotate area, I can go to reflect, and double click this, preview that, so that reflected that vertically is what I want to do. And now what I'm going to do is I've downloaded a concrete texture that I'm going to put on this, right? So I'm going to go File and Place. Remember, you always go File and Place your photos that you want to bring in. Here's my concrete texture. Yes, here's the concrete. Here is my column over here. So I'm going to go and select these pieces and move them above the concrete. Maybe Shift select all those. So I've got this piece here. I'm going to select this piece here, and I'm going to select the photo. And if I right click, I can say make clipping mask. And then it clips the concrete into the column here. The concrete, I could take this concrete and move it up over top of this shape here. So there's my concrete area here. Now I'm going to go transparency and then make sure that this is selected. And then I could lower the transparency of this. Also think using soft light or multiply or some sort of other blending mode would make it look a little better. So that's how you can kind of enhance different things by bringing in and putting textures on things if you want. Select and make sure that the circles are all selected. I'm going to right click, group that together, and then move that over here. Okay, so there's our landscape coming along, and then that is the end of part 2.